What is up, y'all? I'm your host, Steve Holmes. Thank you for joining me on another episode of The Real. It's been another week, another round of news coming from the institution of Bethune-Cookman University. Listen, thank you all for joining me again. We got a great one lined up, and we have one of my favorite people at the school joining us tonight. We got what I would like to call the hardest working man at Bethune-Cookman University. Billy Dajust will be joining us tonight, and we'll be talking all things, kind of student relations, admissions, recruiting, all those things. We're going to tackle a lot of those things, and I'm really excited to talk to him and kind of get his perspective on things with the institution and kind of his just kind of his outlook. So happy to have him with us tonight. But before we do that, as always, I like to recognize some of my favorites, the people that contribute to the show. These are what I call the real MVPs. For those of you who are watching for the first time tonight, these are the people who have financially contributed to the show, $5, $10, $1, $20, because it does take a little bit for me to do what I do. And so I appreciate being able to crowdsource some of the overhead and things. And so you guys have been great. Adrian, Tundra, she's really been kind of one of the biggest supporters. So Miss Tundra, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Gerard, Theron, Eric, Taji, Marcy, Jarvel, Nina, and Derek. These are most of the people that have given in the month of March. So every week I will try my best to highlight them as best I can. So thank you all for that. Also, listen, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please make sure you do that, because it helps the channel grow, and it just lets me know that we're on the right track as we're growing our audience. And for the most part, you guys have been pretty good about subscribing. Each week I kind of tick up a little bit, so thank you for that. So on to some news. Well, not some news, but discussion. Social reaction for the week. I was parsing through the Facebook groups like I normally do, just trying to find things to talk about. And this was in this comment was in relation to the presidential search meetings that have been happening, which I'll be touching on that in a moment. But Napoleon Goodwin, I won't give his government name. I don't know if he wants me to give that, but he went to Bethune-Cookman. His screen name is Napoleon Goodwin. He was in the band. I know him really well. Great guy. His comments about the idea of the presidential search listening sessions was that he loves the transparency and the professionalism, and we may be on to something. And I thought about that, and one of the things, when we had John Crossman on the show a few weeks back, one of the things I reiterated to him was that the last version of the Board of Trustees, there was no transparency. And we just gonna call a spade a spade. There was no transparency. And so I think my thing to them was, listen, whatever the last board did with respect to transparency, whatever the things they were doing, I'm like, do the opposite of that. Like, don't do anything that the board from, say, 2013, 2014 until 2024 did. Do the opposite, because the things that they were doing and trying to be so secretive and trying to be so hush-hush about everything, it really just made it easy for either things to be assumed, or it made it just easy for us to feel kind of funky about what was happening. So the fact that you're starting to see the word transparency in a positive light with respect to this particular board, I think that is a sign that we are headed in the right direction. Now, I know we're not there yet. I get it. There's still a lot that has to be done for them to fully right the ship. But it's little steps like these that make all the difference. And I'm going to share something. I got this on good authority. And I'm going to share this story because I think it's important. There was a very influential person from the university that was at the meeting on Tuesday at the session. Mr. Wells, he was there. And I got it on good authority that he waited, I guess, until the end of the meeting, and he gave his thoughts and his perspectives on not just the search, but just the conditions of the institution as they currently are. And from what I heard, and again, I got this on good authority, that he called it like it was with the board and kind of called it out for the dysfunction, called it out for the lack of transparency. And again, from what I heard, it was well received by not just obviously other faculty, students, stakeholders, but it was just people enjoyed to hear him. And here's why it's important to hear from people like Mr. Wells. These are like the last guard, on the campus. The people that went to the school and came back and they've been working at the school, and then they've had to go through all the mess and they're still standing, right? These people are like the last guard. And so whenever they speak, I think it's very, very, very important. So big ups to Mr. Wells for being able to let your voice be heard. And again, if he did this every time something happened or something was wrong, it just wouldn't have the same effect. So the fact that yesterday he waited until that meeting to speak, I thought was great. And again, transparency, allowing us to be a part of this as alumni, as faculty, is a big deal. And so these are things that we got to remember whenever we feel some type of way about what's happening with the school. Again, I really do think we're in a new day. We're in a new era. And so, I hope that's uplifting for everybody to know that there are people fighting. Hey, Chantel, how you doing? Welcome. She said, what's up to the family, BCU family? Mr. Wright, cool. Glad you're happy to join us this week. Let's see what else we got. Oh, yeah. So, Kelshanti Harris. We've got a new Miss Bethune-Cookman University. Big deal. Obviously, I know they had some things happening with the court over the last couple of years. So I am interested to see, how these royal courts and SGAs in the future are, how they're treated, because I talked to quite a few of the royal court members. This was back at homecoming, and they're really good kids. I just think, again, this is me being a little bit critical of the institution. I just think we got to really wrap our arms around the SGA kids, especially after what happened last year with the protest and then the royal court. And we got to really make sure that we elevate those kids. Royal Court's a big deal. Miss Bethune-Cookman University is a big deal. SGA president, big deal. And so I just feel like, we got a duty to treat those kids like they've earned something special, which they have. So again, congrats to Kelshanti Harris. I don't know her. I was trying to get her on the show tonight and talk to her, but I don't think we were able to get in contact. But that'll happen soon. I'm certain of it. Kelshanti, if you're listening, if you watch this, I would love to have you on the show. All right. What else we got? Football season tickets are just dropped this week. up until May 1st. I think they got a really good discount on them. I think it's with 265, 215, 150. So if you guys are, listen, I know, but we got to support our football team. So if you guys are gonna hit the tickets, go ahead and do so before May 1st. Otherwise, I think they go to full price after. So let's go ahead and support our football team. Let them know that we will be in attendance next year. I think they're gonna be good next year. I'm gonna just come out and say that. I know I just jinxed it, but I think they're gonna be good next year. Yeah, yep, homecoming. Let's go. October 25th. October 25th is gonna be there. So yeah, that's kind of the news. So listen, the person I'm about to bring on now is a person I have deep admiration for, because of his commitment and his love for the institution. And I'm just really, really, really thankful. Um, he's one of the people that you are happy that he's on campus. Um, Billy Dajust, my man, how you doing?
Happy Thursday or Friday Eve to you, my brother.
Friday.
So it's good to hear from you always, man. Again, thank you for the opportunity and hell Wildcats to all of those Wildcats that they're listening as well.
Yes, sir, man. Thank you for joining. So listen, I know this is like kind of a busy time for you, because every time I look up, you either are on the road somewhere, you at some student recruitment fair halfway across the country. Tell me what life is like for you right now.
No, you're certainly right. We are in the fourth quarter season of our recruitment session, as we call it. So this is the time where we're putting our final strategy in place to close out the spring semester, to meet with interested seniors who have committed, but also those who are still kind of waiting for May 1st to make that decision. So we want to provide them with as much detailed information as a team about why they should choose Bethune-Cookman, the reasons they should choose Bethune-Cookman compared to someone else. So now those key factors are coming into play, meeting with parents, determining costs, location. Do we have the program you're looking for? So we're providing them with those details, how successful those programs have been in recent years, providing real data for parents to make the right decision to find the right fit, of course, for their future stars, as we call them.
If let's just pretend, and this actually kind of happened, but pretend me and my daughter Madison, who she's a rising senior, we're standing in front of you. We got 30 other schools around you. What do you say to entice me as a parent and my daughter as an incoming student to come to Bethune Cookman University?
No, great question. Great question. It's something I get quite often from families. Why Bethune Cookman? And I've always shared at least my experiences, at least why I found that to be a home for myself. Some of the morals and the values I was raised with, Bethune Cookman offered most of those. Right, so the Christian values, the legacy of Dr. Bethune, something I'm still in awe about just till today. Just thinking about it,
Yeah.
it's still an amazement how she was able to pull that off, and I don't think it's been duplicated since. So sharing the location is big for us here at Bethune Cookman. Is the fact that we're 2 miles away from a beach. Very few HBCUs can offer that opportunity. Right, you
I,
may
I'm
have other.
I'm sorry to cut you off. You make a very great point. I really would love for the institution to double down on that beach aspect of like our location. I feel like we don't like talk about that enough, because it is kind of cool to be a couple of miles from the world's most famous beach. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when you said that, I'm like,
No, it's right on because that's something we, at least from the recruitment perspective, that is big on our strategy. So
yeah.
selling the location is huge. Just trying to get in the mind of a 17-year-old and an 18-year-old, what are they looking for? So we have ambassadors we partner with. So I want to hear from our students, freshmen, sophomores. Hey, why did you choose Bethune Cookman? So I rely on that resource and getting the feedback from those students themselves as we implement our strategic plan. We want to be able to get it directly from the customers. How are the students enjoying it? Why did you choose us? How can we sell more of that and inform families of those opportunities? Another great perk that very few are aware of, we are a private institution, right? That's one of the great advantages we have over that school over in Tallahassee is that we don't have an out-of-state tuition, right? So now when we're out of state meeting with families and parents, many of them are not even aware of that information. So it's our job to promote that, market it. Hence why we have such a presence on social media, because we want to be able to control some of the messaging as far as what we're putting out there and help to grow the brand. As students and families are viewing us on social media, they're seeing great things at Bethune-Cookman and gives them a reason to at least inquire and say, hey, tell me more about your program in hopes of finding a fit for what they look for sure.
Yeah. Do you find it like obviously? So how long have you been like in front recruiting, like on the trail and talking to kids? Like how long have you been doing that job specifically?
Man, it hit me the other day, quite frankly. Overall, enrollment management, year 18 now.
You've been there 18 years.
Yeah, so 2006. Started way back in
Wow.
2006. So we
Wow.
went through the whole process of the when we were at our very best, 4,200 enrollment, which caused us to have a need for those new dorms, right? So it
Yeah.
goes back all the way back to those days where we just didn't have room to put students. So we needed an actual option to now, okay, now we're tired of getting hotels and apartments. How do we invest in getting our own on campus housing, whether that be in an apartment style or dormitory style,
Yeah.
which now got us to where we are now. So
Yeah.
we've been seeing the ups and downs from
Listen,
2006.
listen. Y'all don't know anything about having to stay at the hotel. Man, let me tell you. So I didn't stay at a hotel. I just remember like those years where we had too much, too many kids enroll and not enough dorm rooms, and that's kind of like the worst kind of problem to have in school. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing now that obviously the dorms, uh, the dorms come with a headache, but at the same time, the dorms have also been a blessing to those students. Because Bethune Cookman is it's a older, well, not older, it's an old school, much like all the other HBCUs. So being able to like update that part of our brand and our operation is really good. I asked you that question because like what is the biggest difference in the type of student that maybe you recruited 10 years ago versus the type of student you're recruiting today?
Great question, and that is the biggest difference. We're using more data. We're
Okay.
driven now by data, not by, oh, well, we have a friend here who wants us to come to a fair all the way in Kansas where it may not be as productive or fruitful where we're seeing a return on investment. So
Right.
being more responsible with our resources and being data driven and using the data to guide us to, okay, where are we going to find the best fit for families and students who are looking for a school like this, right? So looking for affluent two-parent homes, looking for more of those. Like there's always those diamonds in the rough. But now what we've done is we've extended our search to reach families in Arizona, Delaware, the Texas area, California, where families in California are looking for an HBCU. Where if
Yeah.
you're not aware, California as a state does not have an actual HBCU there in the entire state,
Right. Right.
right? So many students you'll meet with the 3.5 GPA, great profile, are left to attend a community college, right? Because they couldn't get in the USCs, the UNLVs, and such. Therefore, now they're stuck, and HBCUs are not being promoted. And you have a 3.8 student considering community college, but they didn't know about Bethune Cookman. So hence now you're seeing more of a presence with some of these college fairs, Black College Expos and such that we're able to attend and meet some of those families and try and grow those numbers and let them know about Bethune Cookman and give them an option to consider outside of California.
Yeah. You know what? And now that you say that, um, like I thought it was kind of cool, especially this year. I saw number one. I saw you. I think you had some pictures at a fair out in LA. Like maybe a couple months ago, but also they did the Honda Battle of the Bands. I don't know if that was around the same time that you were there, but I think that's great because I feel like that the whole West Coast is almost like a gold mine for young black talent that may again that may not even know that, like you just said, the school like Bethune Cookman even exists. And so I think it's really an amazing thing that we're starting to turn over that leaf on the West Coast, and so are you getting a lot of kids that are showing interest from Cali and Arizona and Colorado and Washington State? Like, are you getting good response from that or?
Year to year, that's what's helped us, I guess, exceed some of our expectations, really.
Oh wow, wow,
Really, because 80 to 85% of our population comes from the state of Florida and, of course, the Southeast region, which, of course, Georgia leads the way there with the Carolinas. So, how do we expand those territories beyond the Southeast, right? And the next market was the West Coast. So, as you guys, if you're not aware, Bethune Cookman has an articulation agreement with the state of California for transfer students. That's already in place.
okay,
So if you are a student in California who attended a community college, after 2 years you decide to transfer to Bethune Cookman, one of the advantages is that every credit will transfer because of that agreement. So you're
that's
not going
good.
to lose any time and resources there. So you're able to come right in and continue with your program, given that you admitted to the program, and you can kind of have the last 2 years to complete that instead of losing credits based on where you choose to transfer. So with that in place, now we want to do our part with the undergraduate department to increase our efforts there. We've seen the growth now over the last 2 3 years in the West Coast area, and now Midwest is now our next target.
Mm,
Great opportunity there as well, right? The
yeah,
Chicago, Detroit area, Wisconsin. Again, families who are looking to get away from the snow, so we can now sell the beach as you talked about, right? Making the beach a big selling point for us. 2 miles from the beach, 45 miles away from Walt Disney World. Hey, imagine being in school in that type of setting. So we want to paint that picture for our students to get the idea of coming to Florida, where your families do not have to pay an out-of-state tuition,
right.
and you just happen to be 2 miles away from a beach, and you have Disney World just less than an hour away. You can
Oh
kind of
yeah,
enjoy some of those perks of weekend and spring break events. You have Miami 3 or 4 hours away, Jacksonville 90 miles away, Tampa, Florida 2 hours away. So you're right in the central Florida. So we're
yeah,
right here in the mix where you
yeah.
can reach those big cities whenever you like as well.
There's a lot to love about the location of our institution. And so yeah, I definitely think that's and again I know you're out there talking about it in front of those students. I guess that's probably where it matters most. What about the profile of the students? You and I talked last year, and you were talking about the type of student we used to get versus the type of student where you're kind of going after now. So, like, could you talk to that again?
Sure, absolutely. In 2021, when I took on the director's role there, the challenge was how do we increase the quality of students, right? So, in order for us to stand out and rebrand ourselves in the right way,
Hmm.
we kind of had to re strategize and reimagine who we are as an institution. How do we implement some of these principles we all believe in as alum? What does that look like in 2025, right? How do we sell Dr. Bethune, the legacy of Dr. Bethune, to a 17-year-old today, right?
Right.
So how do we put ourselves on the platform to compete with the best of the best? So we need to now target the best students around the nation, where typically back in our days, I'm saying, early late 90s and 2000,
Yeah.
a 2.25 GPA used to be the requirement per se to be admitted into our school, and it just made it tougher to compete with the best of the best out there,
Right.
right? With a profile GPA of a 2.8 on campus, it just didn't sell us in the right light. So our goal is to go, well, how do we increase that? We have to now be strategic, use data to target the best students, find the best markets and
Hmm.
the best areas to kind of, hey, how do we get some of these guys over in California, in Delaware, in Texas, even in Florida, not just visit the same schools we're used to, but some of these private schools some of these students are looking for an HBCU experience.
Right,
So how
right.
do we add them to the mix and make it really, really a real diverse campus, not just race, but this the mind of background, where you came from, single parent mom with a two parent home. Now, how does that dynamic work on campus? So now we're targeting 3.0 GPA or higher. So now the idea when we visit a fair or we visit a high school, our goal is that 3.0 would be our base to be considered. Now, given that we're a Division One school, we're able to work with students who are slightly below that requirement. So 2.8 is kind of like that. Okay, we can make that work.
Yeah.
But no longer now, gone are the days of a 2.2 student. And often, in often cases, that there's an opportunity to show the potential, but in some cases, when we're not able to retain that student, and now they leave us after a year or two, now they're in debt for
Yeah,
$40,000 and no
that was
degree to speak.
yeah,
It doesn't.
I'm sorry to jump in, but so that was kind of lead me into the next question about retention. And
Mhm.
I imagine if you get a better quality student, then you've got a better propensity for them to graduate, as opposed
Bingo,
to getting those 2.8 or those fringe students who you just don't know what they're going to turn out to be. Listen, I ain't
bingo.
gonna hold you. Listen, I was average. I was 3.0, barely. you know um I wound up okay, but you know what I'm saying. But a lot of the kids, especially considering they never been to college, a lot of the kids are first time, college in their family and all of that stuff. So I think it's a big deal. I think it's huge that we're taking a better student. I'm gonna push you on something though. I
Hmm.
remember I heard this back when I was in school, and they used to talk about kind of this open door policy that Dr. Bethune used to have. And I don't know how true that is, if that is just folklore or if that was an actual principle that she used to have when it came to like admitting students, and she having this open door policy where, if you just have a kid that, wants to learn, then we need to find a place for that student. What, number one, was that true? And number two, how does that affect, I guess, how we would view her legacy and how she would have things ran, being that she had a more liberal acceptance kind of requirement.
No, I get exactly what you're saying, and that was the we have to find the balance there. That's
Yeah.
what I spoke about. I mentioned, okay, how do we find the ideal student that Dr. Bethune would want in 1904? What would that look like today? Right? I would imagine her expectations may be a bit higher,
Right.
right? Given everything that has changed, of course, now the cost for that kid we would have admitted in 1980 is a different decision now for a family who may not be receiving some merit scholarship to afford Bethune Cookman. And we don't want to put them in a hole where, okay, now halfway through you can't continue. Those loans you have to carry with you, and now
Yeah.
you're going home with 40,000 in debt without a degree. And that, for me, I felt like we would be hurting that family even more, and not setting up a plan where they have a plan of success for the 4 years. We have a plan of helping you be retained and graduate with minimal amount of debt as possible, where you're getting a true return on investment. So now being strategic on how do we implement what she believed in 2025 and find those best principles, and how do we best implement those principles today.
Yeah. We got a question from the chat from JGAT97. I'm not going to, his name is Jason, but that's his tag name.
Oh, that's my guy.
Um,
I know Jason very well.
yeah. He says, how has the turmoil, I assume he means just kind of the condition of the school, this stuff we kind of have been going through, how has that affected recruiting?
No, thank goodness, man. We've been fortunate, and and that's one thing we've done our best in enrollment management to stay focused on the goal at hand. Because surprisingly, and I've shared this with many of my colleagues, it's very rare that a student would ask me about who the president is of a school, right? I don't think any of us chose to come to Bethune Cookman because of the president at that time. And
That's
when we
true.
got
That's
here,
actually true.
we're like,
Yeah.
oh, now we love this president, but you're
Yeah.
not choosing. where are you enrolling based on the president. So it never really impacted us as much uh, because in enrollment, we're still rolling as usual. So we kept promoting and did a good job of marketing. We have a good team behind the scenes that does all this magic, man. So the marketing, we become more tech savvy now. Text messaging, students are seeing us on social media. We're doing TikTok videos. We're communicating in all facets, not just the phone call, right? So
Yeah.
now meeting them where they are. They have that cell phone on their hands now. We're communicating via text messaging, and financial aid optimization now is in place. So we've kind of updated our processes to make it more current and more progressive for today's student, where we can meet them where they are instead of trying to implement what we did 20 years ago, to kind of force a student today to kind of follow what we did 25 years ago. So we've met with, what I love is we met with so many different universities. So I have a group text of roughly 30 colleagues around the country, directors and VPs of different institutions, that I can kind of tap in and get their perspectives. Okay, how are you doing this at University of X? Right? It
Hmm.
could be a big school out of state, PWI, but trying to implement some of their model. Okay, wow, that's a great idea. How can we take advantage of that idea here at Bethune Cookman? So being able to now network and being able to connect with different leaders in enrollment management to kind of tap into some of their creative ideas and implement some of these to the benefit of BCU has been life changing. So
Yeah.
now when we're considering making decisions, I can kind of reach out to a few colleagues and, hey, what do you think about this idea based on what you guys have done at your school?
Hmm.
Kind of test, proof test it a little bit before we implement it to make sure we have a good return and success rate after the fact. So everything has been so strategic, man. It's the unity has been phenomenal. You have fewer silos on campus with different offices. So we now meet weekly, our Department of Enrollment Management, myself, or financial aid team, or student accounts team, or
Yeah.
getting with our housing team early. Okay, what are your plans? So we are speaking the same language and
Good.
working in unison. So as you're receiving information, it is happening in the same way we all expect it, and we can all respond accordingly, speaking the same language so it makes sense for the families. There's no confusion about where I heard XYZ here, but no, hence why we're so excited about April 5th. Saturday, April 5th, Miss Sasha and her team has been doing a phenomenal job of putting together this event for us, which will be our admitted student day, where we're
Okay.
inviting students who have been accepted or still considering Bethune Cookman to come on campus. We have over 1,500 guests currently registered as we speak for the 5th. But what I'm super excited about is now providing families an opportunity to come on campus on the 5th and almost do a mini check-in for the fall. So
That's good.
students who have their FAFSA and have paid their enrollment fee will leave out that Saturday with a class schedule and with
Oh
their
wow.
housing assignment, right? So now, as early as
That's good.
April, things are already looking up for you for the fall. The goal is that to get at least three-fourths of those freshmen cleared through the process by July 1st, thereby making them VIP. Now your check-in takes about 10 minutes instead of 3 or 4 or 5 hours,
I love it.
as we've experienced back at that time. So now it is possible. We've seen the last 2 or 3 years where, more than two-thirds of our incoming freshmen are checking in less than 15 minutes, which is the idea of eliminating the stress and using technology to our advantage to have more online option for these students, to online orientation and such, to give them a leg up for those who want to get and take care of business early. You can do that and have a smooth transition without the stress of being in line for hours for sure for check-in.
Yeah, chat. The chat loves that. I love that too, man. I think I can probably speak for most of the older alumni that, and you can probably attest to this too.
Yes, sir.
That during our time, man, we really lacked in the technology, and we lacked in a lot of progressive thinking that would have, obviously, a lot of the technology that you have now wasn't there when we were,
Absolutely not. For sure,
but
for sure.
but even so, even I think mindset on how to make the student experience smoother, quicker, better, faster. Because that is a priority now. It's like students want to know when they get on campus, like how cool is it going to be? They're not. They don't
Bingo.
want to. They don't want to think about. Oh man, I got to go do this. I got to go do that. Register for classes. Do you remember? And I know to the people in the chat. Do y'all remember having to register for classes in the gym? And they used to have those dot matrix printers, and you had to go in there, and it was the long lines of like that was crazy. And I'm thankful that obviously we have graduated from that level of pain point for our students. Let me bump back into the chat. Sky Confection says, "Are academic programs slash majors being revised to attract students?" Follow up to that is, if so, how many are they? How are they being updated so we remain competitive in certain fields? Which is a
No,
yeah,
it's a great question. That sits on the academic side of things, of course. I have sat in a few of those meetings, and I know those conversations are taking place. So
right,
we are they're, best following the best practices of what are the best programs that make sense for today's generations. So thinking ahead, I remember we had a speaker come in a few years ago that talked about some programs that may be in risk of no longer being a need 3 to 5 years from now.
right,
And one of the ones you mentioned, I remember specifically was being an accountant. So that though there are fields now that in the next 5 years where we may be replaced by robotics, right? So understanding that and how do we best prepare ourselves to offer programs that are now progressive in the next that will be beneficial in the next 20 to 30 years,
yeah,
right? And making sure you're getting that return on investment. So I'm sure academics they have those goals and things that they're working on. But for us, once we get that information, we promote it. So for example, the newest program we have, it's a minor currently, but it's cybersecurity, something that is in
so
need
yeah,
right now.
oh
So
definitely,
we've seen, and I've gotten a lot of inquiries on about that on the road. So I'm always sharing that to my colleagues in academic affairs. So that is something I think is we're gonna continue to see increased interest in that area. The health sciences, athletic training,
yeah.
broadcast journalism, those areas. So everything we're seeing on social media, on TV, is attracting students to come into those fields. So I'm getting a lot of young guys who want to be the next Stephen A. Smith. Okay, how do I become? How do I go into
You don't want to
broadcasting?
be no Stephen A. Smith, man.
Well, you know how that goes. They see the popularity.
Jeez.
His recent contract he just signed. So
Yeah, I
guys
know.
are like,
I
well,
mean, I want
whoa.
Stephen A. Smith money, but yeah, I don't
Well,
want to
come
be
on,
Stephen A. Smith.
exactly. But it
Yeah,
does open up at
yeah,
least an opportunity to kind of use that as a way to get you into college,
yeah,
right? So for
yeah,
me, it's whatever gets you in these doors to okay, wow, you have a shot
yep.
because our guys specifically is getting them here. Once our males get on campus, they do very well. We just
Question:
can't get enough of them to believe to come, which now is the new dynamic we're working with now
You
as
just
well.
brought up something that I'm interested. What is the male to female ratio on campus?
Right now, it's roughly 60-40 ish.
Oh, okay, it's not too
So
bad. Okay,
it's 60-40 varies 65-35, but really you're for every two or three young ladies you're recruiting about a male 3 to 1 average is kind of where we've been consistent around those numbers. So,
fellas,
but to your surprise, our young men are in many cases outperforming the young ladies on campus, meaning higher GPAs and fewer infractions. Believe it or not,
oh,
many of our infractions.
let me find
Oh,
out these young ladies out here cutting the food. Let me find out, and the
listen,
fellas
man,
is
man,
holding it
man,
down. What?
listen. I think the guys are just happy. Maybe that's part of it. They're happy with the environment. But young ladies, of course, I think that's where the frustration comes in. Also, retention. I think sometimes
Yeah,
we overlook that dynamic. We assume it's just the academics or affordability. No, sometimes they're just looking for okay, I don't see enough of what I'm looking for or what I expected from the so-called college experience. Therefore, I've got to look for another university that I may be able to get a greater percentage or an environment for what I may be looking for outside of academics and affordability.
yeah.
So sometimes they leave for some minor reasons, something as small as I was having a conversation with some of my colleagues about to this day as a freshman, uh, visitation is still not allowed, right? So recruiting this generation where parents today have been a bit more lenient with some of those house rules per se as a senior, and I have lost some great quality students 4.0 that once they heard about not being able to visit someone of the opposite sex, then well, never
I
mind.
thought
I'm no longer
so they didn't. I thought they changed that. I thought you could visit.
upperclassmen can.
Oh, upper class. Oh, okay, gotcha.
They have they have hours of visitation, but as a freshman,
Oh, yeah,
for that first year, you're kind of no visitation, and of
yeah,
course,
yeah.
it kind of in some instances they won't make it to year two to experience it. If that
Yeah,
makes sense.
I and this is just probably me. That feels a little a bit. And let me tell you, I'm sorry. I'm gonna divert for a second. I'm gonna tell y'all a funny story. Me and my wife Michelle, we both stayed in LLC, and that we obviously for people who know us, we met at Bethune. We were both staying at LLC, and I was in whatever the male honors dorm was, and she was in on the female. I forget the name of it. And could y'all believe we were both? I was like a graduating senior. She was a junior or whatever. Yeah, I was fifth year senior. She was a junior, and we were just trying to hang out in the lobby area. And it's like 9 o'clock, 9:15, and this old battle axe lady, man, that was running the show, man. She came in there, and I guess we got curfew at like 9 o'clock, 9:30. Now, remind you, I'm like 21 at this point. My
Yeah,
wife's
I
like
get it.
19, and she made us leave and kicked us out of the lobby. And I was so pissed. I'm like, man, I'm literally grown right now, and I can't like just sitting here. We was watching BET, Comic View or something, and yeah. So I'm sorry, you just brought back a memory when you was talking about
No, but your experience is spot on, and that's
yeah,
what I'm referring to because we all experienced that. Because, however, we were more receptive to accepting it, right? Because we were just raised differently.
yeah,
So, for me, we didn't like it, but all right, we'll just go to our room.
yeah,
Today, they're saying, "Well, I'm just going to another school."
yeah,
Right? So
yeah,
that's what has changed. Where we have a different brand of student today, especially the ones who are high achievers.
yeah,
Right? So we may be able to keep a 2.8 student who just I don't have another option, so I'll abide by the rules. But that 4.0 kid, who's responsible, they're not attracted to that. And for me, it goes beyond that. It makes me question. Uh, why do we as HBCUs still implement that rule, right? Is it that we're just stuck in that way of thinking?
yeah,
Because they have colleagues that go to Embry-Riddle, 2 miles away,
hmm,
Stetson University, and those freshmen, they're talking.
yeah,
Oh, they have those freedoms at those two schools down the
yeah,
street. But at Bethune-Cookman, somehow, because we're an HBCU, we're viewed as, well, we can't handle that responsibility, which sometimes, if you look at it in that perspective, I don't know if it sends the right message
no, it
um,
doesn't. It doesn't.
from to that generation. So
You know
again,
what
why?
with kids, what I do know about kids is when you tell them they can't do something, guess what? They gonna find a way to do it anyways.
1,000%. That's
So
it.
it's
You're
like,
right.
yeah. So what are we doing? It's like you telling them, okay, you got the freshmen, you can't fraternize in the dorms or the dorm rooms, and so what they do, they go find somewhere else to do it, and it's like for me, uh, as a parent, and I heard I forget who said this or parent. This might have been my mother-in-law said this, but like you don't want your kids to drink, right? But I'm like, if my child is gonna drink and I'm not really okay with it, I would rather them do it in the presence of me or another parent,
Home. That's exactly right. Or even at
right?
home.
Or at home, because at least I can control it, I can monitor it. If something goes crazy, at least we know where they are, as opposed to saying no, you can't drink, and then they go out the back door around the corner drinking with a friend, they get in the car and they hop in the and hit somebody or something like that. So to me, the same premise for like co-ed visitation. It's like, let kids be free on campus, that way they ain't got to sneak in doing it. Cause guess what? Whatever they doing, whatever they can't do on campus, they
They're
doing
gonna
it
find
off
you,
campus.
you better believe it. And again,
Yeah,
and it opens up. I mean, they end up driving and connecting with students from Stetson, UCF,
Yeah.
and they hang out there. And again, it just again to your point, I'd rather you stay local in Daytona near to have a good time than to be forced to go to Orlando to meet with girls from UCF or guys from
Yeah,
UCF.
man.
Now
Yeah.
that travel back and forth to Orlando
Yep.
is just an added risk that sometimes may not be in their best interest. So, but they have no choice, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where I think again rethinking that process. How do we implement those morals and principles that we believe in, but giving them something that is different than we experience? So, for
Yeah.
example, you have a college ready princess who's ready to go to college.
Yeah.
There, if she is to experience something similar to what you and your wife experience, I don't know if that's a good thing,
Right.
right? So that
Right.
means we haven't advanced the idea of, okay, what is different for me, Dad, than you experience? If she attends a school and the same things you experience, she's still experiencing. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or not, because that means we've kind of stayed stagnant. And I think that's what's happened in higher ed. Everything has remained the same criteria,
Yeah.
essays and a recommendation letter, which now we've gone away from those requirements.
Yeah.
I got
And
some pushback on that, but now we would rather have a resume instead of an essay. So we submitted
resume.
resumes. Is to me gives us more about the student because we want to get to know you from your interests. What clubs were you involved in high school? Right? We have over 100 clubs on campus. How do we find the connection for your interests to who we are and what we offer?
Yeah.
Hopefully, there's a fit for that interest. You should be at SGA for 4 years. Let's join SGA at Bethune Cookman. You love theater in high school. We have a great theater program. We partner with Disney. Let's learn more about that. You like music. Let's connect you with music. So the essay doesn't provide as much. And now with AI, quite frankly, you can't really even trust that essay because
Oh
they
man,
didn't really
these
write.
kid, man, these kids in this Chat GPT, Lord have mercy, boy. Hey, boy, they going crazy. Boy, they are going
So,
crazy on it.
so we have to go away from some of those same requirements that our parents even use. Our
Yeah,
parents use that. So we have to make it fit for this generation as opposed to trying to force feed them something we experience where
I
they may not be as attracted to it on there.
I got a question. So
Hmm.
so let me and I never and I assume this is probably like the same for most schools, but maybe it's not. So let's say you have a student who applied, right? They have their complete application packet. Is there a committee or like how do you determine if a student gets in or gets admitted or not? Like what does that process look like? Is it like a job application like program where you just look at metrics and it spits out a number, and if it hits that number they're in, if it doesn't hit it they're not admitted? Like how does that work?
No, it's a great question, and it goes back to the data analytics piece that we talked about.
Okay.
So, in order for us to be able to provide, because we now live in a microwave generation where students are no longer waiting 2 weeks to get an answer,
Right.
right? You may lose them in that 3 4 day process. So now we have to be strategic about targeting the right markets, the right high schools, where I know if I go to MLK High School in Atlanta, I know what I'm going to get, right? I know if I go to Lovejoy, what I'm going to get. If I go
Yeah.
to Mount Zion in Atlanta, I know what I'm going to get. So we've kind of had to be strategic on the front end. If I'm going to visit a specific school, we've done our homework on within that region. Okay, what is the grade of that school? Right? What is their graduation rate? How many of their high school students go to college? So
Yeah.
then when we arrive at that school, if I can offer an on-site evaluation. So if I visit a high school, we're meeting with 20 seniors, all have a 3.0 or higher. We can sit down and meet with them for 5 or 10 minutes, ask some questions, get a feel for their interests. Hey, you have the criteria. It seems like are your interests you might find a home here, but then Cookman, hell, let's offer you an on-site evaluation, give you a decision, but more importantly now, we're able to offer them an on-site scholarship, which now you can take that home to mom and dad. Mom, I was in school today. This guy came from Bethune Cookman. He allowed me to apply. We met, and I got accepted, and he offered me $20,000 for 4 years to come to Bethune Cookman. So now mom is can see, okay, wow, this is real. Certificate of acceptance. Oh, but then Cookman, where is this school located, honey? Then now you can start that conversation about, hey, come in for a visit. Come see the campus for yourself. Well, I heard XYZ about Bethune Cookman. I know what you may have heard, but we want to invite you to come see it for yourself because
Yeah.
I think once they come on campus, they see a different version of what they are expected. And many of them, you'll be surprised. We have a new data that we're going to be using now that tracks the percentage of students who tour our campus, especially if they're a senior. How many of those end up enrolling or committing after visiting the campus?
Mm.
So we can offer more of that, and because we know that experience sells the school. Now
Right.
you're here, you're seeing the dining hall. Let's go to dining hall. This is what it looks like. This is where you're going to be residing. This is your classroom environment. This is your dean. This is who we are at Bethune Cookman. Now, what do you think? And to me, that is the greatest selling point to get them here,
Yeah.
because at that point, that student will know in his or her heart, okay, mom, you know what? I like this school. Or you may visit and there's not a connection, but at least you've seen it for yourself.
Yeah.
And if Bethune is not a good fit, you have enough time to find that home that is the best fit for you and your family as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Question from the chat: how do you keep up with changing trends and regulations in higher education admissions?
Great question, man. That is an ever-changing landscape. We've been fortunate. I think being that we're a private institution has been beneficial compared to some of our state colleagues who have a tougher decision or tougher evaluations to make per se.
Yeah.
For coming from a government aspect of it. So being that we're private, we're not as fully dependent on. However, we're grateful, so it gives us a little leeway to still implement some of the best practices that we think best works for the group of students that we attract, which may be different from what University of Florida may attract here in the state, right?
Yeah.
So just being in touch with that whole idea, we attend college board sessions. So we're kind of sitting with those schools and figuring out their ways of doing things and making sure we're kind of in the same line of operations, although we're serving a different group of students, making sure we're meeting the standards to keep us in good standing all aboard, all across the board for sure.
Yeah. That sounds good, man. I just I'll say this, man. I really do think you guys are doing a great job. And that is considering all the BS that I know. And listen, Billy, I can tell uh, you're you appear to be humble, and you appear to be very mild mannered. Um, and I think having a person with that kind of disposition on campus is probably why you're still there. I can pretty much say that because I know that it you don't have to agree or disagree. I know that working for Bethune Cookman for this last decade has not been easy. And I know that. You don't have to confirm or deny that. I just know it. And I think from myself as an alumni to a lot of the people that are watching this tonight and that'll watch it in the coming days, listen, man, I want to personally thank you for the work you do helping put kids on our campus. Because it takes a person who's genuinely interested in upholding the legacy of Dr. Bethune, who's genuinely interested in the well being of our little brown and black babies and minority kids to go out and get themselves educated so they can go out here in the real world and do those things. So I just want to publicly, on behalf of, our team here, and I know I can speak for all alumni to say thank you for like the job you do, and the rest of your team. I know Sasha and go do me a favor, shout out your team so we know who you're working with and who's behind the scenes, also helping you make magic for these kids.
No, again, and thank you again for your kind words, man. It's appreciated, and it's good to have Wildcats come home. Like Sasha
Yeah,
Ellis, who's now with us, who handles our event planning and assist with our tour coordination. So she's been a great addition to our team.
yeah,
And we've been, Rodney Allman, a recent graduate from the business department, who used to be one of our student ambassadors. So that's kind of been our pipeline using our student ambassadors pool that work for us here in admissions because that's how I got started. I used to be a tour guide for admissions. So I got introduced to this whole recruitment piece as a work study job, and I kind of learned from the counselors that were there. Back then was Mr. Les Ferrier, Dean E.D. Montgomery
Dean
saw
Montgomery.
something in me
Yeah.
that he kind of sold me into this idea. I think he saw something in me that I didn't even know existed. Never thought I'd be here this long doing that. But the beauty of it, it hasn't felt like a job, man. Honestly, I think that's what kept me going. It's truly become a ministry, no longer a job. Where because I've had opportunities to do this for other schools, but then it would become a job. So for me, I'm just grateful for what Bethune Cookman stands for. We want to do our part to keep that legacy going. The part to serve, and we always joke around in here about that third layer that we like to say return to invest is now the third layer, whatever that means, whether it's
Yes.
financial time and resources. How are we investing back into what folks did for us to make it possible? So if every alum could just recruit one student per year, imagine what that would do, right? Just one every year. If you can commit to
If
recruiting
if
just one
if
student.
I didn't know any better, alumni, Billy just challenged y'all to recruit one kid every year. I think we can do it. Let me tell you something. I stay recruiting for Cookman. Because I really do want kids to experience outside of all of the adult problems we have. Like I had the absolute greatest time at Bethune Cookman University.
That's why it
Right?
took so many of
Like
us more than 4 years.
yeah, man. I swear. I swear. But I had the best time at Bethune Cookman. Like I have a hoodie that says Bethune Cookman changed my life. And I mean, it really did, bro.
it did.
I
It did.
just
It did.
yeah, I met some of the best people. People that I'm still so cool with now. Some of my best friends, guys I look to as brothers now. I met them all at Cookman, and I cannot imagine my life without that experience. And so I just hope other kids are able to have that moment, that time. So listen, I'm not gonna hold you. I think this was an absolutely delightful discussion, man. I enjoyed talking to you. I enjoyed picking your brain. You're so well versed about kind of the inner workings of recruitment and the student experience, and we are lucky to have you in that role. So I'm gonna let you go, man. Thank you, and I'm gonna have you back again, and we'll do it. You can give us some updates and some numbers, and any last thoughts and any parting words.
No, again, I'm just excited for where things are headed. Optimistic. The branding is getting stronger and stronger by the year. So thank you all for what you do, alumni. Excited to have everybody back on board. By the way, Mr. Kelvin Maynard um, is someone
Mr.
I think you
Maynard,
should
yeah.
definitely chat with, who's now overseeing the alumni, getting alumni back on board per
Yeah.
se. That's going to be a big part of our recruitment efforts, right? Getting
Mm-hmm.
alumni back on board with those areas we can't get out to. I think of having alumni presence. They were real helpful in Atlanta this last weekend for the Black College Expo. I had 4 or 5 members that were there with me there, so very helpful.
Yeah.
Seeing alumni connect with parents, I think it's another selling point of that family dynamic we talk about.
Yeah.
Being able to connect with that alum back home, and now you have a friend back home you can reach out to while your baby is here in Daytona. So I'm just excited for where we're headed. We've been through a lot, but God has been good to Bethune Cookman. We've been
Yeah.
able to sustain the growth. So the arrow's pointing up. So
Yes.
right now we're trending to maybe not have enough room for students. Which, by the way, last year that was the issue. We were short several hundred beds,
Really.
which is a great problem to have. Again, not have enough beds for students. I would
Wow.
rather have that problem than
The
the
other.
latter, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
So but however, I don't like to see three or 400 families that have to be turned around. Uh, the financial impact of that for me, I don't like to see those folks. We want to lose those guys. So
Yeah.
finding a way now to get these students to be more proactive about getting the steps taken care of so they can secure their housing, which they can do right now. By the way, any freshmen, you can now reserve your room today. As early as now, we're in March. You
Yeah.
can select your room, select your roommate, and get ahead of the process and have a smooth transition from wherever you're coming from to joining the Wildcat family here at Bethune-Cookman. So we can't wait to see you on April 5th. Look forward to seeing you in the fall. And the Wildcat family, thank you guys for your support. If there's anything we can do on our end, please feel free to reach out to our office, and we'll do our best to provide that assistance for you as well.
Cool, man. Billy, thank you, brother.
My brother, thank you, man. Proud of you, man. Keep doing the great work. I love the podcast. And again, continue doing the great work. I think it provides another level of transparency, as you talked about, to speak with those departments that are critical to the process, and that this message reaches a different a crowd of followers that we may not have on our platform. So this is phenomenal work, man. Great job, and Hell Wildcats to you and your family.
Man, Hell Wildcats to you, man. Thank you, brother. Take it easy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, man.
You got it.
Listen, Billy's great. He's great. In the chat, y'all put it in the chat, man. Tell me what y'all thought about that. I thought that was great. I'm feeling a lot more relaxed tonight, as you probably all can kind of notice. And if you also notice, I didn't have any drops tonight. I had Xfinity here at about 3 o'clock today. I got new hookups, new routers. I changed my configuration, my Wi-Fi, all of my stuff in my house, and look, like it worked. I didn't drop. Now I watched it drop in like 5 minutes. But listen, thank you all for sitting through that, man. That was really cool. Again, Billy's an amazing guy. He's been there since 2006, so he's seen it all. He's been through all the presidents. He's been through all the drama, all the BS of the institution, and that you wouldn't be able to tell it just listening to him talk. And so I think that's amazing. It's just good to have people like that. Like, I feel great knowing when people like that are still with us, because we lost a lot of good soldiers over the years, and so it's just like who's left to fight for Dr. Bethune? Who's left to fight for the students? Billy, Dajust, like, he's one of those people. So yeah, I think this was great. Getting a lot of great interviews in the chat. Thank you. Listen, y'all, I'm gonna keep doing it. I can't drop it yet, but I do have hopefully a really special guest next week, and the next 2 or 3 weeks are really gonna be good. I can't divulge any of it now just because none of it's been confirmed in days and things. But I am working, and I do have a bunch of good guests lined up. As always, this little thing behind us, if you guys want to, this little thing, I always do it wrong. If you guys want to contribute to the show, that'd be great. No pressure. And yeah, I'm about to call you out, Tiffany Todd, if you're still watching. I'm sorry. This is a PSA directly to her. I sent you a DM and a message to your IG account. Read it. All right. So yeah, I think we good, y'all. I'll have a big announcement coming soon, but I can't tell you yet. I just have to, I gotta finish doing my thing on it. Tonight was great. I'm done. I'm gonna get out of here. Time to eat some dinner, and I will see y'all next week. All right. Hell Wildcats. Peace out.